Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new here. My name is Cody. I am a writer, and y'all, Happy New Year! It is 2026, and we're back. We're back with the videos. If you've been following the channel at all, we've been doing lots of live streams over the last, 90 days for this little thing that I put together called the 90-Day Novel Writing Challenge. I am happy to announce that I successfully completed the challenge and I was able to finish the first draft of my very first fantasy book, and I actually only needed 78 days, apparently. Especially over these last few days as we've crossed over into the new year. Today is actually January 2nd, question mark? Yes, today is January 2nd. I have been just feeling very reflective and, doing the thing where you look back and see all the things that you accomplished in 2025 and, you start making plans for the year ahead. And so I thought I would, the very first video that I post this year in 2026, just kind of going over how we did last year, what did we do well, what did we do not so well, and then kind of looking ahead into 2026. I went back and watched my previous video where I did my 2025 goals. It's the thumbnail that says, "Hello 2025." And I went back just to check in because honestly it has been so long I forgot what goals I had set. And so I went through and I went and checked all my stats to see what I completed, what I did not complete, and we're going to go over that right now. My very first goal on my 2025 list was to publish the Ghostwriters Club, which if you've been sticking around on the channel, you would know that I accomplished that goal. I was very proud of seeing my first book come out. Me and Clark were actually in Chicago whenever it officially released. We went to a Charlie XCX concert, and it was just such a fun way to ring in this accomplishment and with one of my favorite people in the world, and I got to come back a published author. So pretty neat. My second goal of 2025 was to host some giveaways, which we did do. We did a couple of different pre-order giveaways. We did one that was involved, like if you actually pre-ordered the book, then you were entered into one specific giveaway. If you shared like the Instagram thing that I made, you were entered into a giveaway. And then I also had a specific giveaway just for my patrons at the time. I did have a Patreon at the beginning of 2025, but I was not able to sustain it because my mental health took a nosedive pretty early on in the year, and I just was not able to keep up with it. And I honestly just felt guilty taking people's money for very little in return. And so I just closed down the Patreon. My third goal for 2025 was to share the second draft of Terms and Conditions with beta readers, which I actually did do. Pretty sure I did that like over the summertime. Pretty much up until this book came out, I was not doing anything else because I could not focus on anything else. But I'm pretty sure I sent that out, probably like May. God, I really don't remember. My beta readers can fact check that for me because last year was a blur. It really was. But I do know I completed that task, so we get a check mark. Okay, so my next goal was to actually implement the feedback that I got back from my critique partners, and I will say that that feedback has been compiled. I actually have it right in front of me. I have all of my draft 3 notes. This is like 8 little pages front and back, and then I also have a fictional will and testament for one of my characters, and I have a grand master plan written out on the back. So lots of fun documents that I was able to compile to get ready, but while I did compile the notes, I did not actually implement them. So technically this one's a fail, but I'll take half credit for at least getting it together. My next goal was to hire my editor for Terms and Conditions, which I will say this was a very last minute effort, but it is complete because as of December 30th, I have hired the editor for Terms and Conditions. It is going to be the same editor that I use for the Ghostwriters Club just because I really liked working with him and I really liked what the final product ended up being like, and so I'm really excited to work with him again on Terms and Conditions. I'm really excited, and I am officially on deadline because I am aiming to get the third draft of Terms and Conditions to him either end of March, early April. That's the goal. We shall see how it goes, but obviously I'll be vlogging the whole thing here on the YouTube, so stay tuned. My next one was to hire my cover designer for Terms and Conditions, which this one I did not do because I was just having some decision paralysis on my cover designer because I have a very specific image of what I want, and it requires a specific skill set to do, which I do not possess. And so I've just been kind of really going through. I've found like 3 or 4 potential Cover designers that I have saved like on my Reedsy account, but I'm going to probably wait until I'm a little closer through this next draft, or maybe even as I'm working with my professional editor, because I really want to make sure that any big symbolism elements that need to be on the cover are there. And if I, get the cover made too soon, then it may end up affecting the symbolism on the actual cover. And then also your cover designer creates the front, back, and spine. And so I want to be further along in the process, knowing a more accurate page count number. That way I can, accurately give that to my cover designer, and we don't have to keep going back and forth to adjust the width of the spine and all that good stuff. So I decided to just postpone that one and do that one this year in 2026. That takes me to my last goal for 2025, which was to read 20 books. And I did not accomplish this. I did read some books. I read 14 books according to my Goodreads. And so I'm gonna take that as a win. I read at least one book a month, which is usually my bare minimum goal. When I'm in such a heavy writing mode, I tend to put reading on the back burner and not do it as much, which sucks because I love to read. Usually, as long as I'm averaging about one book a month, then I'm pretty happy with that. So technically it's a fail, but pats for trying. And honestly, if you include the beta readings and all the drafts that I read of my own book this year, then we're probably at 20, but I'm not going to count that because that's my writing. It's not someone else's stories. So if you look at the average here, that means we accomplished 4 out of our 7 goals. 2 of the ones that we didn't accomplish were like a partial. So if you add those and make one whole, it's like 5 out of 7, maybe. No? Sometimes your priorities can change, or sometimes opportunities pop up that might, take precedent over something that you prioritized earlier in the year. And so I did take a moment to write down some goals that I achieved, but were not listed on my original goals list. So a couple of those things include doing 2 author events, which holy crap, I did not know that would ever happen. It was just really cool that how both of them sort of just literally fell into my lap. Like, one of my friends knew someone who owned this brewery, and they were doing this huge fair. It was almost kind of like a little festival where you can go and get all these different vendors for jewelry and art and books. And it was just such a cool event. I said I'm welcome back pretty much every year. So sign me up. I'll be there next year. And then not only that, I got to go to my favorite local indie bookstore. It's called Novel here in Memphis. And it is it's my favorite bookstore ever. The vibes are so good. And also, any chance that I get to support an indie bookstore, I'm absolutely going to take it. So it was really cool. As far as I know, they are the only bookstore that carries my book in person, in stock, that I've seen or that I've heard from the social medias. But if my book happens to be in one of your local stores, dude, let me know, because I would love to see it. Take a picture, send it to me on Instagram, and that will absolutely make my entire week. So just let me know. The next thing that I achieved was I outlined and drafted the first book of the Dusk Trials, which is, Project Purple, but in my mind, the first book, I'm calling it the Dusk Trials. That's subject to change, but I think it sounds kind of cool, so I'm keeping it for now. I was outlined and drafted that, which was not necessarily on the radar. I knew that I wanted to make some progress towards it, but I thought maybe we would just do an outline and be focused more on terms and conditions, but that's just not what happened. I remember the moment exactly. I was working through these draftery notes, and I was about to get started on my next revision, and I was talking to Taylor, saying, I don't know what it is, but there is something that is calling me to this fantasy project. And I could think of nothing else. Every time I sat down to work on terms and conditions, my mind was just filled with ideas, character arcs, battles, magic systems. All these things were just flooding my mind, and I literally could not focus on anything else. And Taylor literally looked at me and she was like, well, if that's the case, just follow your gut and work on that. Literally, that's where my priorities sort of shifted this year. And in my opinion, it was so for the better, because when I tell you, I had so much fun planning out this book and writing this book for the first time, because this story I've held on to since I was 12 years old, and I've just had it in my heart for so long, and it's grown and evolved as I have grown and evolved, and it was just such a cathartic experience to use the end of my very first year of my 30s working on this project that 12-year-old Cody couldn't have even imagined it could be. And I'm in love with it. In my opinion, it is some of my best writing. It's some of my best character work. And it was also some of the hardest writing that I've had to do because I've never juggled that many characters at one time before. Like, you know, in the beginning of this adventure, we're juggling literally like 20 characters, like an entire crew of people. And I had to give them, you know, backstories and names and relationships and arcs and all these things. That way, whenever, if they, you know, don't make it to a certain point in the book, you have this feeling of loss. Like you actually feel like you lost a character and not just a nameless person, you know? And that took a lot of work and a lot of thought. I'm sure the end product, I'm gonna come back and read it at some point this year and be like, wow, this is not what I thought it was. But in the moment, I could just feel the magic. I could feel the energy in the scenes. And I'm really, really excited to jump back into it at some point this year. But we'll talk about that a little later. Okay. The next thing that I achieved, but wasn't listed, was I hosted a 90-day novel writing challenge. That was really cool. I had a Discord, I had a track bear, and it was just so neat to see that, you know, because this was just going to be a personal thing that I was going to do. Because personally for me, NaNoWriMo, 30 days is just not enough time for me to successfully finish a book and not achieve burnout. And I learned my lesson the hard way in 2024 whenever I fast drafted terms and conditions in November. And I was burnt out for like 3 or 4 months, did not write at all, could not bring myself to do it, couldn't bring myself to sit at my desk and look at my computer. And I can definitely tell that this year doing this 90-day novel challenge worked really well for me, and literally by the end of it I was already itching to move to the next thing because I still had the momentum and the excitement, but I wasn't feeling fatigued or burnt out. So overall, the 90-day novel was a huge success, and there were so many people that joined me along the journey, and so many people that I got to meet, and so many people that I got to, you know, live stream with and meet through the AuthorTube community and just get to know a little bit better. It was freaking awesome, and I will absolutely be doing it again next year or I guess this year, because why wouldn't I? It was so fun. It worked really well. It got the community involved, and those 3 things, it's like the holy trinity of the AuthorTube community. And now before we jump into my goals for 2026, I kind of wanted to share a little bit of my YouTube stats from where we were, you know, this time last year to where we are now. In the year of 2025, we went up by about 750 subscribers. I actually got monetized in January, which was really, really cool. And over the course of the entire year, my channel made, from like AdSense or whatever, $259.69, which if you average that all out is about $21.64 a month. Now, I know there are some people that think that, you know, YouTubers are rolling in the dough over here. Like once you get monetized, then all of a sudden you have a whole, you know, salary in your pocket. That's not the case. And that is just a very real look at what the pace is for making money on YouTube. I mean, you saw how much I was live streaming and posting videos, and if you know, look at that amount, it equated to about $21 a month. So over the course of 2025, speaking of the content, I did 61 live streams. Let that sink in for a minute. 61 live streams and posted 25 videos. I feel my creative energy with YouTube really like kind of like revving up and sparking back up, and I'm excited to dig my teeth into 2026 on the YouTubes, okay? And speaking of content, if you specifically have any specific topics or subjects, you know, involving writing or self-publishing, feel free to drop them down below. I will add them to a list. That way I have like a running list of ideas of content, and because I want to be making content that you want. I don't want to just be making stuff just to make stuff, you know? Like if you want to know about it, if you want me to do a deep dive on it, leave it down below and I'll add it to the queue. Okie dokie. And with that, let's move into our goals for 2026. Now, in 2026, my very first goal I have on here is to hire my cover designer for terms and conditions. So that is probably going to be accomplished in January. That's the goal. That's where it is on my little year tracker that I made. And of course, along with that is I want to publish terms and conditions. That is my second goal on my 2026 calendar. Did you hear that? I went to Wisconsin, Minnesota. Anyway, I have a rough date a rough timeline on when I would like to have this book published. But right now I'm going to kind of hold it a little close to my chest before, everything is lined up like I want it to. Once all my ducks are in a row with, the editing and the cover design and the uploading and the ISBNs and all that fun stuff, once all of that is kind of, laid out where it needs to be, then I will be sharing all the things about terms and conditions, and I'm so excited to share with you because I have so many fun things coming up. My third goal for 2026 is I would like to complete my read-through of Project Purple Book 1 and take some revision notes similar to like what I have here with my terms and conditions notes. I want to at least assess the issues. That way, whenever I do have the time to sort of come back to it, I already know all the problems and pitfalls. All I have to do is just fix them and follow the list, follow the plan, if you will. My fourth goal for 2026 is to outline Project Purple Book 2, which I already have a general idea of what needs to happen, but it's the nitty-gritty little scenes that I'm not quite sure of, but hopefully will kind of come to me throughout the year that way, because I already have like a running Google Doc for this book. And so as things kind of come to me for the second book, I'll just be adding things in there. And then at some point later in the year, I will come back and kind of start organizing all of those things into a cohesive sequence that makes, a story that makes sense. My fifth goal for 2026 is to draft the first draft of Project Purple Book 2. Because if, I did it this year with the 90-day novel writing challenge, and I think it would just be so fun to every Q4 have a 90-day novel challenge where I'm actually getting to first draft a story. And then I get to use all the other quarters for publishing and revision and stuff like that. I think that really works for my brain because in the early parts of the year, I'm in that sort of analytical goal setting where we're pushing towards these finished lines, like very motivated, energized, that kind of feeling. And then usually by Q4, I'm kind of like wanting to wind down, kind of be just a little bit of a hermit in my house and being creative and cozy, and something about the fall winter vibes. It just goes so well with drafting a new story. So I think that really works for me, and so that's what the plan is for 2026. And then my last one is one that I really can't control, and I just said maybe hit 3K subscribers here on YouTube. And I mean, it seems like it should be achievable because, we added 750 in 2025. And if I do what I say I'm going to do and gear up my content here on YouTube in 2026, I hope that we can at least hit 3K, but we'll see what happens. I'm not going to list it on here, but I would also like to read at least one book a month, go back to my minimum, because I know 2026 is going to be a busy year with writing, revising, outlining, brainstorming, all the fun things. And so I just want to, I don't want to make reading feel like something that I have to do, because whenever it has this like have to do goal attached to it, it just makes me feel like it's more work than fun. And for me, reading is fun, and I want it to stay that way. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. But with that, those are all of my 2025 goals. Those are all of my 2026 goals. And I'm so excited to get cracking on some of this stuff. Obviously, I have all my notes here for terms and conditions because that is the next thing that I'm going to be working on now that I am officially on deadline. With that said, if you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up down below and leave me a fireworks emoji of any kind to let me know that you made it to the end of this video. Once again, if you have any questions or any topics that you would like covered here on the channel in 2026, drop them down below. Let me know. I will absolutely take all of them and add them to my little Google Docs list. But with all of that said, I hope you have an amazing start to your 2026. I hope you had an amazing end of your 2025. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!